board. Last week we had talked about, we covered a little bit on the personalities in terms of reds, blues, yellows, greens. So quick update on that. Reds, money driven. Blues, fun, adventure driven. Both are normally pretty to the point. Both of them like you to, get to the point. Greens, very detailed, research oriented. Yellows, help, and basically are given driven. They're basically driven by helping other people. So tonight what we want to do is we want to talk about the other personality styles, which in turn is auditories, kinesthetics, and visuals. So what does that mean? What do you mean auditories, kinesthetics, and visuals? So in communication, we want to make sure that we're communicating people from their place, right? I think it was Hillary Thompson, she did on one of our team training calls, all on the 4 love languages, which is another way to look at it. I'm not sure if she's on here tonight or would be open to sharing that, but she did a fantastic job of that, and I thought that that was great. So Hillary, if you're out there and you want to jump on board, you're more than welcome to. If anybody wants to text her and say, hey, if you want to share that, that'd be great. Either way, it doesn't matter. But what we're going to talk about is auditories are very driven by, like, we all have different ways that we will communicate. Like some people do great by reading. Other people do better having an audio book where they actually hear the audio book and then they take in their language or their information like that, and they do really well. Other people can see something, and then that's how they're going to relate. They also have the gustatory, people that react to smell and things like that. And now all of these things, when we talk about mindset and we talk about the way that we feel about things, many times things that we see, things that we hear, things that we smell, one of our senses will bring up memories. Like, remember when you listen to a song and all of a sudden it brings you back to when you started dating your loved one or whatever, right? And you start to feel all fuzzy inside and you start to feel those emotions. Well, the way that our subconscious mind works is that it records everything. So whether you know it or not, so why is this important? Because so many times the external information or programming that you got from basically your childhood or things that you've dealt with, or a lot of times the way that you are, so the reason why this is important is because our brain will record these situations and we will get stuck and not know why. Well, certain things will happen and it all of a sudden brings up all these emotions where we have post-traumatic stress or whatever you want to call it, to where it can stop you. So one, it's a matter of recognizing when you feel certain ways and how to do pattern interrupts and how to change that. Well, what is a pattern interrupt? Sometimes it happens when somebody writes a comment and I read it and it interrupts my pattern. I totally forget where I am, right? Totally forget what I was thinking about, totally forget whatever. And I know y'all have experienced that. We experienced it last week. So the thing is that pattern interrupts, whenever you're in any situation where it's negative information or somebody's just won't shut up, negative stuff, you can do a pattern interrupt. It'll change their pattern and change the situation. They don't even know what happened. So what does that look like? Well, say for instance, somebody's just, I don't want to use the word nagging, but they might just be going, blah, 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 talking about negative stuff. And then you could just go, I know this is random, but would you eat a bowl of crickets for $50,000? And they'll start thinking about it, $50,000, and it'll just totally change their pattern and they'll forget what they were talking about. And you can do that with many different situations where you can basically change the pattern of things. You could just say something totally off the wall totally random, that'll change things, and then they will forget. I think I've heard the word, maybe it might even be called scotoma. I forgot what that was. There's a different thing, but at any rate. So guys, I did a course on, one course I did was by Jerry Clark, and it was called The Magic of Influence. And The Magic of Influence goes over Jerry Clark. You can find him at clubrhino.net or something like that. And I heard it a million times listening to the audio tapes. But I listen to these things over and over and over in terms of how are we being influenced? How are people communicating? Like, why do some people listen to certain politicians or even pastors or whatever? And how are they communicating with the subconscious mind? How do commercials work? Why do commercials work? And after I went through this course, I learned all of these things. So when we talk about the happy coffee that everyone's talking about, that was one of the things that he taught in that course, which is called social proof. And social proof, when people think that everyone's doing it, Tom Big Al Schreider talks about it as well, where Tom's always saying most people, and a lot of these things are patterns that I've just picked up because I've listened to them over and over and over again. So a lot of it just happens. So I'm sharing this to also share when we're communicating with other people, we want to know how they communicate. So pay attention. Now, guys, I want to be very clear. Whenever we go into more detailed stuff, when we're talking about this deeper stuff, whether it be personalities or whatever, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world when I was learning it. And because I was seeking out significance, I loved teaching it to show people how smart I was, or whatever you want to call it, right? And what I want to tell you is that you don't need to know any of this stuff to go out and create success in our company. It's a cup of coffee, guys. Like, don't all of a sudden, get off this call and go, I need to figure out how to, and totally weird yourself out with all this stuff. We're teaching you this stuff just because if you can, one, have an awareness and just learn how to get better at communicating with people, it helps all aspects of your life. But again, we're sharing a cup of coffee, and if anything that you ever hear on one of these calls or one of the training calls don't align with what your upline is teaching in terms of systems, then just take whatever nuggets you can take, but don't all of a sudden think you got to change everything you're doing and be a weirdo, okay? So with that being said, pay attention to, so auditories, for instance, if you watch their breathing habits, they're going to breathe from like midsection, okay? So they're going to breathe from like the middle. And they're going to use words, and their language style when they're talking was like, it will be things like, you hear what I'm saying? How does that sound? They're going to use words that have to do with sound. So when you hear a visual, for instance, and auditories are also going to be a slower pace. In their language, they're going to be a little slower paced. Like, I know everybody knows these people. You're like, how's your day today? Well, I woke up, I had my cup of coffee, and I had to go to the store. So I was like, do I take my wife's car? Do I take my car? So I took my car, and then, those stoplights, they just drive me crazy, like all these stoplights, like I stopped at 4 stoplights on the way, and you're just like, I asked you what you did today, and you're sitting here telling me what car you went in, whatever. Like, they're good. Auditories love to talk because they love to hear themselves because they connect with sound. So they're the people that just tell you a story, and you're like, visuals are like, visuals many times might be reds, but it could all differ, right? But a visual's like, they're more animated, they talk faster, they're gonna use their hands a lot when they talk, and they are like, get to the point, right? Like, they don't want you to go into this long thing because they learn from, like, dude, all you have to do is say, I went to work, oh, great day, awesome, right? Like, that's what a visual wants to hear. And the auditory is explaining like their life day, like just crazy, just. And guys, there is no bad, whatever, but just pay attention. If they're using language that has to do with sound, right? That is an auditory, right? Did you hear what I'm saying? Oh, like everything is going to have to do with sound in their communication. I normally have like 5 examples, and for whatever reason, they're not popping in my head right now. So now we're going to go to the visuals. The visuals talk faster. The visuals use their hands when they talk. Visuals normally dress really sharp because they're worried about the way that they look. So they're always, a lot of times, going to be dressed up. They're, not always, but more times than not, they're going to be a little bit sharper in the way that they're going to be dressed. And basically, they're going to talk faster, and they're going to say, you see what I'm saying? That's clear, isn't it? And they're going to use, man, that's just out of sight. They're going to say things that have to do with vision. They're going to say things that have to do with being able to see. You ever talk to somebody and they're like, you see what I'm saying? Well, how am I going to see what you're saying, right? And the reason why they say that is because we all think in pictures. So when I say, where do you see me? Many of you all might do that, but you're really seeing me right here. That you paint a mental picture when you hear people talking or when you're watching them, and you start to tell yourself stories on the way that things are. Like, you ever talk to somebody on the phone and you're like imagining what they look like and you're visual, and then like you see them, you're like, you don't look anything like what I thought you looked like, because you already painted a picture in your mind, right? So visuals are going to say things that have to do with sight. They're going to breathe heavy up high in their chest. When you watch, they're normally more upright in their posture. And then we go to kinesthetics. Kinesthetics are very touchy-feely. A visual, by the way, also pay attention when you're talking to someone. You want to pay attention to proximity. Visuals will start to back up from you if you get too close. So pay attention to these things when you're talking to people and you're communicating with people on what their body language is doing. Like, if you're like talking and whatever, and they're like kind of doing this a little bit, you might be a little too close to them, and visuals don't like people to touch them and don't like people in their space. Like, it's funny when you watch a kinesthetic talk to a visual, because the kinesthetic is grabbing them and stuff, and the visual's like, get your hands off of me, right? Like, they don't want you touching them. That's just the way they are. So a kinesthetic, they're going to say things like, this doesn't feel right. That person is out of touch. I need to get a grip of this situation. I can't grasp that concept. See, I did a better job of coming up with examples on the kinesthetic, but all of these things have, all of the personalities have different, words that they're going to use that have to do with that style. So just pay attention to that stuff. In kinesthetics, breathe low. Their posture's normally a little bit more forward. So just pay attention to these things. Again, people like people. We want to say people like themselves, and people treat others how they want to be treated. So that's the reason why it's important to pay attention to these things, and just pay attention to, like, if you have somebody that you can practice this stuff with, or just watch, your significant other, watch the way that they do things, pay attention to the language they use, and figure out what are they, red, blue, yellow, green, and then figure out what feeling or what sense that they relate to the most. Is it hearing? Is it touch? Is it sight? Just pay attention to these things, because all of these things will help you in the communication process. So, does that help anybody? Okay, one person. Awesome. Good job, Chris. One person got it. So, with that being said, let's move on. So, guys, and I'll just share from what we did with our team yesterday, for example, because Over the last few weeks, you've heard us talk about a lot of things. We talked about um, why or how to pick the right company. What is it that drives a model? What are the things that make a company thrive, and what are the things that not make a company move forward? And what I can tell you is the number one thing of what will create massive momentum in a company is vision. It's vision. And if you are a student of John Maxwell, like I was fortunate enough to be able to be a part of what we call the LID program, where basically John Maxwell coached us weekly. And we were on these coaching calls with him, and then we had to do all these processes and all of these things. Now there's 5 layers of leadership, or 5 levels of leadership. And the first level of leadership is just, it's learned leadership. It's just you learning what in the world you're doing, right? Like learning what it is that you do, in the business or whatever. It's learn leadership. And then many times in this industry, we have people that hit certain ranks, and then they're in a leadership group. For instance, our team, we have a platinum and above group, and then we have other groups that, as they get up, and then the information sometimes is deeper on the higher levels of leadership. We will talk about the exact same things on the platinum that we'll do, say, if we're having a Royal Black Diamond and above call, right? So it might be a little bit different. Not that we have those calls all the time, but it's a different level of leadership. So you got learned leadership. And what I'm going over right now is not only in John Maxwell's books, but there's a book by Orrin Woodward and Chris Brady called Launching the Leadership Revolution. And I had no idea I was going to talk about this right now, or I would have had the book out. But who knows whatever is going to come out of my mouth, because I just go off of being in spirit or feeling what I'm supposed to talk about. So first level of leadership is learned leadership. Second level of leadership is production leader. And when I say production leadership, and I want to talk about that because, guys, just because you have a rank doesn't mean that you're a leader. I mean, it's just a reality. There's some people that have huge ranks in companies, but they're not what you would call like a huge leader. And there are other people that, might be a better leader that don't have the same ranks, right? And this goes in every company. And I'm talking about traditional businesses. We're talking about, in life. So production leader is someone, and I'll use this as an example. And when I share my story of when I got started in this industry, I went from not making any money for 2 years to finally saying, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm going to make this happen no matter what. And I went from making no money to $3,000 that month. Literally in 1 month, I went from no money to $3,000, and then I never made less than that. And as I started to learn about leadership, one of the things that I learned is that I wasn't one. I mean, and what that was is I had the rank, but I was a production leader. And every single month in that company, you had to hit a certain number to be a part, a certain rank. And I was personally doing 75 personal memberships every single month in that company, like 75 new customers every single month. And I was a production leader. And in our model, you could be a production leader and make a lot of money with our comp plan, right? And you could do really well. And I was doing fairly well in that company. But what I didn't have is leverage. I didn't have leverage. It was all based on my personal production. And I came to a point where I said, I'm not going to be a production leader anymore. Like, I want to build a team. I want to have an organization. So that's when I really started to a whole nother level of my journey of personal development and going to courses. I went to like generic network marketing trainings and all this stuff. I just started going to stuff. I started getting all the audio courses. I started buying all these courses and stuff. And guys, by the way, You don't have to do that to have success in this company, by the way. And we have people that you can mentor in this company that you can basically learn that from. But what I can share, in the company I was in, my organization or my upline ran their business more like an insurance company. And it was all like having a bunch of agents going out there and getting a bunch of sales. And they weren't teaching how to really develop people from a leadership perspective. So what I can tell you in this company, starting from Mark and Judy down in all of the different organizations, we are way more into developing leaders, and way more into, like you'll hear Judy say, if you build the people will build the business. They have not gone to, Mark and Judy have not gone to all the trainings and things that I've done. And I learned my biggest lesson in this industry from Mark and Judy. And that is, your business will grow. Like, you can only grow at the speed of trust. And what I can tell you is that this couple have trust. I trusted them. They believed in me. And what I recognized is that the biggest strength that you can have is the way that you make people feel. So when we talk about the personalities, why do we talk about that? Do we talk about it because you need to know that on how to close someone on a cup of coffee? No. That is a leadership conversation. So where you recognize that, hey, if I talk to Roy from a red personality / visual, we're going to communicate better and I can make him feel better based on his learning style than if I talk to him from a yellow / kinesthetic personality style. So it's about having an awareness of how you make people feel. So as you learn this stuff, and the reason why we talk about this is because it's all about how you make people feel. So learn leadership is number 1. Production leadership is number 2. And then when you actually start to lead a team, where you actually have a few people under you, I'm trying to figure out what that is actually called. I think it's just you're actually in a leadership role where you have leaders, right? So you're starting to lead. So we'll call that the real first level of leadership, but that's number 3, where you have a few people that are actually following you. By the way, you can have a team, but if they're not following you, you're not leading, right? You're not the leader. So then now we're going to go into the next level of leadership, is when you're actually leading leaders. When you're actually leading leaders and mentoring leaders on how to be better leaders. And we have a lot of people, we've been so blessed to have many people in our organization that are leading leaders, which is incredible. And that's when you really start to have some at the 4th level of leadership, that's when you really start to have some traction and you start to have things going. When you have leaders under you that you're leading. And then the 5th and final level of leadership is when you are mentoring the mentors. In other words, when you are mentoring other leaders, that's awesome. But when you hit level 5, you're actually mentoring the mentors and helping them become better mentors versus just helping them to lead. And guys, what I can share with you in all these different things is questions are always the best way to help lead. So the thing is that you have to get permission to lead people, just so you know. Like, you can't, just because you have some people that you recruited into your organization, doesn't mean that you're the leader and that you have permission to be able to tell them what to do. By the way, you're not their boss. This is, like they say that the U.S. has one of the most incredible militaries in the world because it's a volunteer army, right? Like, all these people volunteered themselves to be in the military. But the thing is are they really, they still have somebody telling them what to do, right? Like, they join, they volunteer, but then they have a boss, basically. Well, guys, you have a volunteer army when you are building a network marketing business. So yes, all of the videos, Tisha, all of the videos are saved at zoomreplay.com. Zoomreplay.com, it's just a YouTube page, or go look my name up on YouTube and it's there. But we put it at Zoom Replay, so where it's basically easy to get to. All the videos, all the trainings, all that stuff is being shared over there. So with that, you're not anybody's boss. Like, so what you have to do, so when we do a welcome call, one of the questions that I like to ask at least is, hey, you know, how do you like to be worked with? Like, do you want me to be open and like, if I see you screwing up, like, because, so what I'm doing on the welcome call is finding out what are your goals, what are your dreams, what are your desires, what is it that you want? And more importantly, why do you want it? And more important than that is, how does it feel when you get it? What does that look like? What does that feel like when you no longer have to worry about what the right side of the menu looks like before the left? Anybody know what I'm talking about, right? You look at the right side like, oh, I really like that, but I don't like that, right? I don't like that price. So what if you didn't have to worry about that? And it might be something as simple as that. It might be, I need an extra $500 to send my kid to private school. Well, how does that feel to be able to send your kid to private school and not have to worry about it? Well, how does it feel to whatever? Well, I really want to live in a new house. Awesome. Where? What does it look like? How many bedrooms? Whatever. Have you gone out and looked? And then we'll start talking maybe a little bit about a dream board and start to visualize. Well, why am I talking about this? Remember earlier I said the number one thing that drives a model is vision. You have to have vision. So Ricky orchestrated a call the other night, last night, where we had all the leaders jump on board and share what attracted them to this company, why did they come here, and how has their life changed since they've been here, what has happened for them. And guys, it's so important for you to, one, have that plugged in feeling. Right now with COVID and all this stuff, people aren't seeing each other. So we were talking and we communicated with multiple people, and Ricky's like, let's do an online like leadership retreat. And of course it wasn't exactly what would be a leadership retreat, because in a leadership retreat it's very in-depth, but we did at least get the leaders to be able to know who the other leaders are and get to hear their heart. Because we have so many leaders in so many different organizations, unfortunately people don't know the value that all the other leaders bring. So this was something that we did, and I thought it was great. Because guys, you have to, one, and we talked about this a little bit on that call. So we went over the 5 levels of leadership just now, so I can switch subjects. But what we talked about on that call is, because when we focused in on what we were going to create in this company, we said we were going to be the change of the industry. We said we were going to be different. We said, we looked at all the things that all the other companies were doing, and we said, we're going to do it different. We're not going to do those things. So some of the things that you have not seen is the cars, the houses, the boats, the jets, whatever, you know, other companies will use all this stuff. And like, look, I've been in 2 companies where a lot of the leaders are jumping in these private jets and flying from place to place, doing these Facebook Lives and being all bougie and, you know, ooh, look at us and all this other kind of stuff. And what we recognized is that it makes some people feel icky. And part of that has to do with the fact that many people have their psychological thermostat in terms of money is very low. In fact, they'll say things like, money isn't everything. I don't need a watch like that. I don't need a car like that. I don't need a house like that. I don't need a boat like that. I don't need whatever. Guess what? We don't need anything except a little Jesus in our life, right? Or whatever your belief is. But we do need family. We do need love and connection. We do need air. We do need water. You know, these are things that we need, and I think we all need happy coffee. But the thing is that, you know, of course you don't need to have that or whatever, But I'm sorry, my belief, and I'm not going to say I'm sorry about it, but the bottom line is that the book that I believe in, the God that I choose to believe in, that what I see as truth, says that he came so that we can have life and live it more abundantly. Not so where we can go, we don't need this. It says that you should leave the nations as an inheritance. Over and over and over, it talks about how you should have everything. And the God that I pray to is the God of abundance. And it's not the God of, oh, well, when he says live life abundantly, he meant like happiness and all that. No. The bottom line is, if you really look up the history and the stuff, like Jesus was able to travel because he had wealthy people funding him. I mean, it's what happened. When you really go research it, he had wealthy people that funded the travels and all this stuff. That basically they were able to go do all this stuff. And the thing is that if you have a low subconscious thermostat, basically, you will say the silly things like, well, I don't need this and I don't need that. And of course you don't need that. But I'm telling you, like when you have a nice vehicle, it just feels better. It does. And you should strive to have nicer things if that's important to you. And look, I know some people, well, I could just go give it all away and whatever, and that'd be better. And that's cool. But this is the thing. If we're in a business where we're going to attract people and we're going to sell people the vision of anything is possible here and that you can have whatever life that you want, then basically I think that we should have some good looking stuff, some nice stuff, right? You should have some things that drive you. How are you going to inspire the red that is money driven if you're like, you know, and I wanted to say Hyundai, but Hyundais are really nice cars now. It's like an awesome car. But I would say, I remember the first Hyundais that came out. My sister-in-law was looking at cars a few weeks ago, and we went and looked at the Hyundai SUV. Forgot the name of it. Joe, what's the name of that Hyundai SUV?
Palisade?
Yep, that's it. Thank you. That thing is bad. I mean, it is bad to the bone. It is an awesome car. It, like literally, she was like, I just have a problem saying I drive a Hyundai because she had an Infiniti and she was swapping. I'm like, you realize that an Infiniti is a Nissan, right? The Genesis, if they put the Genesis logo on the Palisade, then it would be like, oh, I have a Genesis, right? Toyota, Lexus, you know, Acura, Honda, it really doesn't matter. Cars are bad to the bone. But my point is that people, like when you have nice stuff, like it just feels good. Like I had a 2012 F-250 Lariat, fully loaded, as nice as of a truck you can get at the time. They had the King Ranch, and the only difference was the seats, and I preferred the seats that I bought. I would have got the King Ranch. Also didn't like the painted bumpers. I like the chrome bumpers because I scratch the bumpers. Because I'll just run over bushes and stuff. I don't care. So at any rate, when, you know, like tax purposes, like we've done things, many of the people in our team, and we talk about fiscal responsibility. And don't go out and blow money just because you're making more money. So I want to be very clear about this. When I'm sharing this, I'm sharing it because I really believe in my heart, we've done a great job of creating a different environment, but I think we've dropped the ball a little bit on helping you guys understand the power of what you have in your hands with this business and what is possible. And you're going to start seeing a little bit more of that stuff being shown on what's possible from some of the leaders. But many of the leaders haven't even posted to the level of how bad their houses are and how incredible they are. Like, you know, I know the Becks are going to be moving into a really cool place out on the water and all that stuff, like out on the beach. Ricky's place is incredible, right? You know, Ian Prather lives in just a beautiful house. You have all these people in the team that we have not shown this stuff. We haven't gone out there and flashed this stuff because we didn't want to be those people or try to use the stuff. Like we were on a call, the leader call, somebody was talking about somebody using their check to try to recruit them to another company, you know, here, look at my check. We haven't been doing those things. But what I want to tell you, and the reason why I'm sharing this, is because you deserve to think bigger. You deserve to know what's possible in the company you're in right now. And just because somebody is showing you a check or showing you a house or showing you this and showing you that doesn't mean it's not happening here, because it is happening here. People have changed their lives in where they live. Like, have y'all seen any of the photos of where Mark and Judy are? No, they're not showing this stuff, but it's crazy. It is incredible. Guys, I've stayed at their place on the beach in Daytona. They have a whole floor of a condo, right? And then now they have a place in Puerto Rico that's every bit as grand. And I'm sharing that because, guys, what is possible is all dependent upon your mind. And if you can start dreaming big, and I started all this off with vision. You have to have vision of where you're going. You have to have vision of what that looks like. You have to give yourself permission to have a great life and have the big things and dream and not say silly stuff like, I don't need that. Guess what? You don't need a Rolex, but it sure does feel good. I'm telling you. And you don't need to have like the truck that I got, like, it's amazing. And I'm telling you, it feels different than the 2012 fully loaded out truck. You know, Ricky and I have matching trucks. It wasn't on purpose, but he has the platinum. I got the limited, and the seats are like white and football leather on the sides. And it's so freaking comfortable. It's way more comfortable than the other one. It drives better than the other one. It has a 6.5-inch lift on it. It's incredible. Guys, this was on my dream board. I'm sharing this not to be braggadocious, but it was on my dream board. What's on your dream board? What do you believe is possible? I shared weeks ago that, you know, Sean McLean called me up, actually last week, to have me do a 3-way call, and I was on my property that we just got because I realized that, and I'm sharing this from a place, so I want to be very clear. So I keep saying clear. That sounds like a visual, doesn't it, right? So, but I do want you to hear this so you can feel what I'm talking about. Now I just talked to all the personalities, right? So you really do have to feel what it's like, because as I was sitting there on the call with him, I was explaining what I was doing. I was working on my excavator. 2 years ago, I couldn't afford to put fuel in the excavator that I have, right? So I have a machine, you know, like everybody wants like a big toy. Today I had my daughter out there and we were tearing down trees, and I'm taking out trees this big because they're all gonna die as I fill the ground up anyway. And it's just the coolest thing to have like such a cool toy, right? But the point is that like I had this thing from a previous business that I haven't used it in 2 or 3 years, couldn't afford to put gas in the thing, literally, when we got started in this company. And then now I'm like, I can't have this piece of equipment when the air conditioning's not working. So in the last few weeks, I'm like, I fixed the air condition, I fixed all the windows. The windows were cracked, they were there, but cracked and stuff, fixed all that stuff. So now if I'm gonna be in this thing, I'm gonna be comfortable. But I'm sharing this because I'm on the phone with them and I'm sitting here going, wow, this is crazy, when I was thinking where I was, and now I'm on my property. That like literally if I took a picture from the front of the property to the back of the property, this 50,000 pound piece of equipment looks like it looks like this big in the picture. You could barely see it on the back of the property. It's so deep. It's like 700 foot deep. And the thing is that, guys, I own it now. I'm sharing this again so where you can grasp that if you have a dream, that it is possible. Guys, what is the difference between, and let's use the Triple Crowns as an example. What's the difference between Mark and Judy and you? What's the difference between, Lori and you? What's the difference between, Brittany or Maria or Ian or Ricky or any of the ranks or whatever you want to call it. And guys, again, ranks don't matter. It's people. The only difference was their vision. The only difference was their belief and what they believed was possible. So guys, if you were on our leader call last night, what you would have heard was the vision of 10xing our company over the next year. 10xing our company. What would happen if you 10x your business in the next year? What does it look like? What would happen? And guys, this isn't just words. This isn't just going, oh, we're going to 10x the business because that sounds cool or hype. We said we were going to be different, and we have been, but you have to have vision on what you're going to create. You have to have vision on what that looks like. So what I'm doing is I'm explaining to people. Like we went to on Saturday, I think it was Saturday, I went to a friend's camp in Slidell, and it was a beautiful camp. Like it was beautiful. It wasn't real big. It was about the size of my boathouse on what I'm going to build. And I was like, I want the plans for this to be my boathouse. Like it was exactly how I'd lay out my boathouse. I was like, this is bad to the bone. So the thing is that guys, the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm seeing things. My wife has a whole Pinterest account. Like we don't necessarily have a dream board hanging up anymore, but every day I go pick up my computer and there's Pinterest and there's boat houses, like the outsides, there's, that's how we found our house plans of what we wanted. And we had all these things. If you cannot see something, you can't create it. If you don't know what it looks like, how in the world are you going to do it? If you were going to go travel to another place or go on vacation, wouldn't you go get the pictures of where I'm going? Wouldn't you go get a map of how to get there? Wouldn't you go whatever? Guys, you have the vehicle for greatness. It's a matter of you visualizing, you experiencing the greatness. It's not any more complicated than that. See, when you start to believe it, when you start to think about it, when you start to visualize it, what happens is it starts to become a reality in your brain. Your brain doesn't know what's real and what's not real. Your brain does not get to make a decision on what's real and what's not real. It only knows, it's like a computer. You program what it believes. There was a video somebody sent me the other day, and it was like a college had these, they had women and men like figure out if a computer is male or female and why. Oh, it's funny as hell. Listening to the reasons on why the women said that the computer is a male, and then listening to the men say why it's a female. It was funny. Go look at that video. I don't even know what it's called, but it was funny. But with that, I'm saying that because point being, what that video made me do is realize that a computer only knows what you tell it. And your brain is the exact same way. Your subconscious mind is the exact same way. The reason why weeks ago I was talking about my affirmation and speaking that into existence is because, again, the brain doesn't know what's real and what's not real. And if you tell it enough, a certain thing, it starts to believe it. And why did I share, why was it so important when we were talking about 10x in the company and what that looks like, is because when you can see it, when you can believe it, the action that you take when you believe something, the only reason why you don't take action, the only reason why people don't go and act is because they don't believe it's going to work. If you knew without a shadow of a doubt that if your number, let's say there was a number that you put on it, and the number was you had to prospect 1,000 people and you would get $1 million. Would you care who says no and who whatever? If you knew without a shadow of a doubt that if you basically would get $1 million if you hit whatever your number is, wouldn't you just not care? Just go through the numbers, go through the numbers, go through the numbers, go through the numbers until you hit that number because you'd have the $1 million? The thing is, if you knew without a shadow of a doubt that that would happen, you would take action. Well, this is the reality, guys. We don't know what your number is. But what I will tell you is if you take action and you just do it, 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 it's a matter of time It will happen, guys. Anything is possible. We have the perfect vehicle. And boy, I wish I could tell y'all what was coming. But what I can tell you is that we will have something that will bring things to a whole nother level of what you've experienced. And that's all I'm going to say. And what I can tell you is that we have never sat and hyped anything or told people, oh, you know, whatever. What we have been selling and sharing from the very beginning is the vision of the company that we want to create. And what I can tell y'all is that company has been manifesting and day by day by day becoming that exact company that we visualized, that we talked about, that we spoke into existence for the last almost 3 years. We've been visualizing what the perfect company looks like. Well, guys, welcome to that company. This is that company that all your dreams can come true. This is that company that you can create whatever it is that you want. This is that company that you can basically do what you've always said that you didn't even believe that you said. Like if you said one day and you know you're lying to yourself, it's okay. You could lie to yourself over and over. Keep on lying and tell yourself that over and over and over till you believe it, because I'm telling you, it is possible. I hope you guys got value tonight. Everybody have an awesome night. I'll unmute the call and everybody have a good one. Good night, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Chris.
you. Good night. Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you,
Night, Chris.
man.
Love you.
Night.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.